Welcome back to my series on bulk listing with a CSV file for eBay. This is Annie and eBay School, and we are on part 3, building your template. As a reminder, I'm using the example of bulk uploading vintage postcards for this tutorial. Actually can apply to pretty much anything, or it can apply to anything with different degrees of difficulty. The idea of this is that you create your listings in a spreadsheet, you host your images on the internet, you link them together, and you upload that in bulk instead of doing individual listings one at a time. This whole shebang used to be called file exchange on eBay, and that was a thing for decades. And they stopped supporting it really around 2015. They stopped updating the documentation and they didn't really push it or create new features that were publicly announced or anything like that. And the page was really old looking, but it still worked all this time. They have recently moved this functionality to the reports page in Seller Hub, and it's not really called anything now. Like, it used to be called file exchange, and now it's just called bulk uploading your listings with a CSV in the same way that you can do other things by uploading and downloading CSVs. It's just not a catchy name, but you know what I mean. eBay offers you some pre-built templates, or they're built on the spot as you ask them for what you want. And this is a really handy way to start, and maybe a handy way to always do it. You can also make your own template in Excel or another spreadsheet program from scratch, or do a hybrid, which is what we're going to do, where we download eBay's template and then we change it to suit our needs and save it as our own template. And I don't know if this is the right place to tell you, but I've reminded myself on the slide. Variation listings are possible to do in this methodology, but they're a little bit fussy. So if you're interested in that, I encourage you to read the documentation about how to do it. Modify your spreadsheet to work for variation listings, as I'm not going to cover it here. This is what you need to do this shebang. You need a spreadsheet program, and that can be Excel, and that's what I'm going to use. You could also use Google Sheets, which is free. You could use Pages, which comes on the Mac for free. You can use OpenOffice, which is free online, open source software. And I'm sure there's others as well, but those are the ones that spring to mind. Anything that is a spreadsheet from which you can save out a CSV file or comma separated values document, which is pretty much any spreadsheet. And the other thing that's going to be handy is eBay's inventory onboarding guide, which is in fact the new documentation for this process. The first update they've done to it since 2015. And in fact, the two PDFs that were available in 2015 are still available, and they are still valid, and they have some information in them that they haven't added to the new documentation yet. So if you get really into this, you might want to have a look for those. Look for the file exchange documentation PDFs. There's the beginner version and the advanced version. And as someone on the community board said, they contain the esoteric information. And the other tool you might need at first is patience. This isn't hard, it's just kind of finicky at first while you're finding your way through it. But after a while, you can just get to it, and it's fine. So our next steps, we're going to download the template version that eBay offers. And there's two choices, and I think the CSV version is better. I'll show you that. We're going to then modify it to suit our needs, save it as a template, and then we can reuse it as needed. In the step after that, I will show you how to actually fill it out with your extra data, but that's coming later. So we will go to eBay, to our seller hub, and then to the reports page. And under reports, we go to uploads. And you'll see this sequence. We're going to go through, select a template. So we say get template. And for source, the choices are orders or listings. I know source doesn't sound like this is the right choices, but we want to do listings. For the type, we want to create new listings. For the file type, this is what I was mentioning before. You want to select the CSV. You can totally use XLSX, which is Excel, but I find this version, which is new in the eBay universe, is kind of confusing and overly complicated, but I find this simpler version a lot easier to deal with. So feel free to look at them both and download the one you feel comfortable with, but I'm going to be working from the comma separated file. Next, we want to choose what category we'll be listing from, or categories plural. In this case, we're going to go to collectibles, to postcards, and then to postcards. And we're going to be doing non-topographical postcards. I personally find it easiest to keep one category or maybe two per spreadsheet, and to keep them very similar, or else you're going to get a lot of complicated fields that you only need for some listings and not others. So I like to keep it simple. And I'll click done, and when you hit download, it will generate the file and send it to you via your browser. And I actually already downloaded this yesterday. Okay, so I've opened my download, and this is what I get. I'm using Excel on the Mac. It should look similar on the PC, and it should look similar in any other spreadsheet program you might be using, although if you're using Pages, it will probably look a bit nicer because, you know, Apple does that sort of thing. So let me orientate you to what you get in here. This row 1 is actually just telling you what version of the template this is, and you don't need this row. So in my world, and this is optional, I'm going to delete it. And how I do that is I right click on this row number here, and I get the option for deleting. Bye. This row, which is now number 1, is what's really important. These are the field labels for your listings. And by field labels, I mean when you're doing a listing the normal way, one at a time on eBay, each field that you fill in is labeled, like title, and then you have a blank and you write the title, or category, and you click through the menu and you fill in the category, and so on and so forth. So these are those field labels, and in a sense, all the blank rows below them are the blanks like you fill in on eBay, but we'll get to that. Now, in this template, all of this stuff is actually just notes to help you fill it out. And you have to actually delete all this for it to work. So it's handy, but it's also a little annoying. I know all this information, and I'm going to tell it to you. But if you want to refer to it, which you may because it's handy, you can select it, copy it, make a new page, and paste it. And when we save our template, we're going to be just saving a single page, this sheet in the workbook, which is this one. So the fact that this stuff is here is irrelevant. So let me delete that. All right, now this is a working eBay template. Isn't it beautiful? I will make it a little bigger. And you can see it starts over here in cell 1A, and it goes all the way over to row 1, cell BP. Now, this is a lot of information. Don't worry, you don't have to fill it all out. We're going to take away the things that are not needed. So, starting at the beginning, let's look at this first field label. This is the action field. And of course, this is not something you have in your listing when you're doing it the one-by-one way, because this is something that is specific to bulk uploading. And what action is telling eBay what you want to do with a listing. And in this case, we want to add a listing. There are other things you can do, like revising and modifying and all sorts of things, but we're always going to be adding listings in this realm that we are within at the moment. Also in this action field, and this is different than everything else, there's some extra information like which site you're on, be it US, UK, JP, etc., DE. So if you are on a site that is not US, you want to fill in your country code here, or your country code here and your site ID code here. I don't know if they're all the same. I assume they are, but you'll know better if you live somewhere other than the US, which is what I get by default. It might give you your country by default, depending on where you are, not sure. You can also indicate your currency. We have US dollars by default here, and you can change this to whatever you need to. Version and CC equals UTF-8 are things you don't need to change. This is indicating, I believe, the version of the template, and this has to do with the encoding. Don't worry about it. So that's the action field. It is required. You always need to have this, and it doesn't need to be the first column. These are all movable. You can do whatever order you want, but I like to keep it first just to help me remember that it needs to be there, and because it makes sense. It's like, this is what I want to do, and then here's the information I want to do it with. So going through, a lot of these will be familiar because they're all things that are on your single listing form when you use the eBay site. And here's the deal. You can delete any of these columns that you are not going to use. You can also hide them, which it can be handy if you're not sure yet. But I just go ahead and wholesale delete them. And what I mean by hide is when you select a column in a spreadsheet program, I think it's the same in all of them, and right click, you can choose hide, which will sort of shrink it up like that. So it's still there as indicated by the thick line, but it's not visible. That won't mess up your template. You can do it if you want, but I am going, to delete it. Custom label is the custom SKU field, and I don't use that. You might, in which case don't delete it, but I don't use it for postcards. I'm going to click this, right click it, and I'm going to actually just hit delete. All right, next we have category, which in fact is required, which is indicated by the asterisk. And I didn't mention that before because I'm not sure, it's not totally consistent. But in this case, the asterisk does mean that it is required. And you can't just type the category, like I can't just type postcards or whatever. You need to look it up, which I will show you when we go through the content. But for now, just know this is the eBay category, as opposed to your store category, which is, of course, if you have categories in your store, if you have a store, the store category. You'll notice that, that this is written in camel case, which means that it's all one word, and we have an uppercase and an uppercase for the next word. They've actually changed this, and the templates they're letting you download haven't caught up yet. This is the old way they did it, and this still works fine, and as far as anyone knows, it will for the future. This is not required, so if you don't use store categories, feel free to delete it. I do use store categories, so there it stays. All right, this is the most important, in a way, title, which is the title of your listing. Again, it is required, and you are welcome to move it over here if that helps you to think about this information. Subtitle is the field that it costs you extra money, and I don't know anyone who uses it, and I don't recommend it. So let's get rid of that one. Now, these relationship fields have to do with variation listings, and we are not going there. So we're gonna delete those as well. We can shift click to do multiple, and bye. Condition ID is the condition, as in new, used, or some categories have things like good, very good, acceptable, etc. Postcards just has new and used. And like the category and the store category, you can't just type new or used in plain English. You have to use a special code, which again, we'll come to. These ones with the C colon in front of them, regardless of whether they have the asterisk, are all item specifics. For postcards, I actually don't fill out the item specifics, and you might do better in search than I do if you do, and you're welcome to. So feel free to keep any of these that you use. I am not going to use them. So there's subject, theme, occasion, type, artist, unit of sale, country, region of manufacture, postage condition, all of these things. They're the normal item specific choices that you get for postcards. And as you see that I'm doing, if any of these you can't see the whole thing, you can just make the column wider by stretching it. So let's see where this even ends. So I'm going to keep going. California custom, what's this? Custom bundle, size, personalized. So all the way to AF in my current set of things are columns I'm not going to use. So I'm going to select that and then shift select back to subject, and I'm going to delete all of those. You can pick and choose the ones you want to use, or you can delete all of them too. Pick URL is a super important field that, although it does not have an asterisk, you do actually need. And it stands, if this isn't obvious, for a picture URL, or in other words, the pointer to where your pictures are stored. Next, we have gallery type, which is about if you're using one of those gallery options that costs more money, and we don't do that. So we'll delete that one. Description, this is where you write the description, just like in your eBay listing normal style. That one's important. We do need that. All right. Now these, a lot of these are going to depend on whether you use business policies or not. I highly recommend that you do use business policies, but you of course don't need to, and I think I do have a video on how to set those up if you want to. Format is going to be whether it's an auction or a fixed price listing that is required. Duration is slightly weird because if it's fixed price, it doesn't really have a duration, but it's good till canceled. And if it's an auction, it does have a duration. So we need this one. Start price, we need, there's also buy it now price, and it's a little confusing if you're doing a fixed price listing, but start price always works, even if it turns it into the buy it now price. So I use start price. So I'm actually going to delete buy it now price, even though I do buy it now listings. This is what I mean by this process being slightly fussy. All right, quantity, we need that. That's like usually 1 in my case, but could be more. Here's the stuff that has to do with whether or not you have business policies. First of all, there's all this stuff about PayPal that most of us cannot even do anymore because we have managed payments. So unless you're on the old system, not managed payments, and you still accept PayPal as a payment method, you want to just disregard and delete this one. PayPal email address, similarly, is only if you're using the old system. I don't even know if anyone needs to use this field, actually. We're going to delete it. Tell me if, it's your favorite thing ever and you keep it. Immediate pay required. This is again specified in your settings in your account, so I'm not sure why you would put it in a listing, and I'm not sure if that would override the universal setting. I somewhat doubt it, and I think this is an old thing that they haven't gotten rid of yet, but that's just me guessing. I'm going to delete it. I never use it. All right. Payment instructions, again, this is super old and not needed, so we're going to delete that. Location means your location, where you're shipping from, and generally eBay knows this as a universal setting, but you do need to also tell it in this template upload situation as well. But when you're using this location field, it usually causes a lot of errors in my experience, and there's a better field to use to accomplish the same thing. So we're going to delete that one. Shipping type. For a lot of these next ones regarding shipping, I use business policies to control this and recommend that you do too. If you don't, you should keep them all and fill them out. But and you can reference, you can look in the documentation, but I use a shipping profile, so I am going to delete shipping type, shipping service, shipping service, shipping service, shipping service. These are for alternate, choices, and I'm going to delete all of those. Now we're at dispatch time, which is how long it takes you. It's like your handling time, how long it takes you to mail it out. So we're going to keep that one. We need that. Promotional shipping discount. Again, this is getting into the esoteric, and I never use this. If I were going to do a promotional shipping discount, I would specify that in a promotion and apply it to the listing rather than specify it in the listing, if that makes sense. So we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to get rid of it again here. Delete. Next we have more things that I use business policies for, which is the returns accepted option. I cover that in my return business policy. If you don't, of course, keep this and look in the documentation for how to fill it out. Returns within option, refund option, shipping cost paid by option, additional details. All of these are covered by my return business policy, so we are going to delete them all. Shipping profile name. This one we like. This one is asking for the name of the shipping business profile that I'm going to use, so we like that. Keep that. Return profile name, similarly asking for the name of the return business policy we're going to use, so we'll use that. And finally, payment profile name. We'll use that too for our business payment profile, which no doubt just is called managed payments because that's the only thing you're allowed to use now. Take back policy ID, no idea. I'm gonna delete it. I mean, I assume that it is something else to do with returns that is not a thing that happens anymore. Maybe it is, I don't know, but we don't need it. This product compliance policy ID is, again, getting kind of esoteric. If you know what this is and you need to use them, then you should be able to fill this out And for almost everyone, we're going to just delete it. And that's all the fields. So we've gone down from, I don't know how many, to, over 26 to only up to O. Now, weirdly, there are some things that you need that they did not include. So the other things that we need here are, we need to replace that location field with this one, asterisk postal code. And this seems to not have errors. Well, it does actually have errors, but I'll show you how to do it right, so hopefully it won't have errors. And the other things we need are to specify the weight of your item if you are using calculated shipping, which you would specify with your shipping business policy. And the fields for that are weight major and weight minor. Major is the pounds and minor is the ounces, if that is the measurement system used in your postal system. I imagine that it is kilograms and grams in some countries, though I'm not really sure about that. But if your items can weigh more than a pound, you want to include weight major. But we're doing postcards which weigh like an ounce, so we'll just do weight minor. And again, it's camel case, so you do the uppercase W and the uppercase M, and it's all one word. And that's what it looks like. And there you go. So those are all the fields that I use to list postcards. I will give you a copy of this CSV as is, so that you don't have to type it all if you weren't playing along at home. And I'm actually going to switch the order a little to make it a little more convenient, at least in the way I work, and hopefully it will help you too. Again, you can switch the order of any of these fields, it doesn't matter. So I think that's probably enough for this video. Talk about dry and boring. But this is the stuff you need to do to get your template set up. So when I'm done, I'm gonna just save this as a template, and it should be the same in whatever you're using. And it's already, when I said save as template, it already chose the XLTX form for template, which just means when I open it, it will open a copy instead of me overwriting my original by mistake. So I'll just save it and name it whatever I want, and then we'll have that for later and forever. And I think we're going to stop it there. And next time we'll talk about filling in the template. Okay. Hope this was helpful and that you are able to bear it. Thank you and take care.